You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a not very special Election Day Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and with me is Doug in his hat. Doug, I don't know if you remembered you had your hat on before we started, but that's a very interesting chapeau you're wearing right now. So,
thank you.
Do the sides go down to cover your ears? Is that how that works?
They do, but if I keep it down inside, I can't hear. But in the wonderful town of Steamboat Springs, Colorado, it's snowing right now, and I'm in a co-working space, and my office, or I shouldn't say my office, the table that I sit at is like right in the corner, and outside walls. So I have a window looking forward and a window to my right. And so it is a cold corner of the office. So when I come in here to this phone booth to do the shows, I kind of forgot my hat was on, but I'm going to leave it.
It's very Elmer Fuddyian, that hat of yours. I don't know if that's really an adjective, but I'm going to go with it, Doug.
Yeah, fuddy. I like it. So I got this crazy hat, but your background, my friend, is awesome. I mean, I think if our listeners can, look left and right a little bit, they may be able to figure out the city. But yeah, what's your story with that, man?
I am on vacation, and you wouldn't know it from the number of calls on my calendar, though, Doug. But I'm on vacation. I'm in Chicago. And I am in a beautiful room at the Marriott Marquis, and I have a ridiculous view of most of the city. So I have probably 3/4 of the city from my hotel room. It's pretty sick.
Nice. Yeah. So I know Chicago a little bit. So we're looking north. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah. There's Soldier Field right behind my shoulder here, and a whole bunch of gigantic buildings. I don't know, beautiful architecture, but.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell anything is. East Coast guy.
Yeah, somebody's saying, "Hey Draper, you dumb shit. The lake is to the right, is to your left. So obviously you're looking north." So anyway, it's a great visual for the show, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty visual. Don't worry, I'll be back to having some boring ass wall in a windowless conference room next week, probably.
Yeah. Well, self-sacrifice for the betterment of the show, my friend.
Hey, man, I travel so much. When I use my points, they take care of me. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Doug, right. I open the show, which means the first topic goes to you, my friend. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off, pal?
Good deal. All right. Well, this one, it's nothing like a good war and chaos for somebody to generate profits and financially benefit from it. So I don't know if you've seen this in the last in the last week. So Ocean Network Express 1, which some of our listeners may remember, that was the steamship line that got sideways in the Suez Canal and created, I don't know, how many days was that? Like 3? Was it a week? How long was that
ridiculous.
ship stuck?
I think it was longer than a week, Doug. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was long. So anyway, they came out and they just reported just had a report, and the term used was remarkable Q2 for this fiscal year, with revenues up 65% and profits up over 1,000%. And it's driven by consumer demand, yada, yada, yada. And, oh, by the way, the chaos that's going on with Panama Canal, that's not chaos. That's potentially global warming with the water levels low. Absolutely the chaos in the Suez Canal. And the amount of money that these steamship lines are generating because of it is just crazy. We talked about that multiple times, and it's very well known during the pandemic how rates just skyrocketed. And now everybody, the bottom line, Pete, you and I pay for it, right? If you got a vessel that has to go around the Horn of Africa and come around, hey, we're absorbing all those costs. Excuse me, we're absorbing the transit time. We're absorbing the additional fuel. And this is an example when they have these releases and you're like, wait, what? Does that say 1,000% year over year in Q2? I mean, it's unbelievable. They're raising their profit forecast for this year, and they're just crushing it. And the other thing I wanted to make sure I get this right is that Maersk. Hold on a second. I want to get this information right. They just released um, some. They just released 41% revenue gain in Q3 over Q2 for all of the same reasons. So I think the steamship lines are insulary with chaos out there. They just raise the prices and go about their business. So I don't know. What do you think? Have you heard about that? And what's your take on steamship lines? It's not a negative thing. It's the reality of it. But they are profiting and making a ton of money as political chaos and war ensues across the globe. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Doug, let's just cut to the chase, right? Chaos and bedlam are good for carriers, and their prices are going to go up, and it's going to be harder for everyone. Whenever things are tough on us, meaning the consumer of transportation and freight forwarders, generally speaking, things are excellent for the ocean carriers. So we've had all of these things that you've already mentioned just come to a head, right? This crossroads of mayhem over the past couple of months, and they're profiting well on it. And hey, here's a news flash. It doesn't look like anything's going to get better over the course of the next couple of months. It might even get worse. Who knows? So they will take advantage of that. And again, Doug, how many times must I say it? Hate the game, don't hate the player.
Yeah.
O&E's making their money doing this, and so is every other ocean carrier. It's just the way it works. If we don't like it, I guess we can go build our own ships, which I wouldn't mind trying, if I'm being very honest, Doug. I wouldn't mind trying that at all.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the key thing is it's not going to get any better. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah. All right, let's shift to your topic.
So couldn't sleep last night, and I got up a little earlier than I normally do, and was looking for something to listen to while I did my laundry. I have a laundry machine. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm doing my laundry, and I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast that popped up yesterday with Elon Musk. And most of it was not anything remarkable. But what got my attention was he started talking about ITAR in the middle of a podcast, the International Trade and Arms Regulations. Yeah. He was discussing how people that they're being sued right now by the Department of Justice because they won't hire asylum seekers. And he tried to explain that as a manufacturer of one of the most controlled weapon system types in the world, right? Missile technology. He's not allowed to. He's not allowed to. You have to be a permanent resident to work there. And it was just fascinating to me that my world collided in this way. I don't think that most Americans realize that particularly very controlled technologies like missile technologies, like weapon systems, high-end semiconductors and certain types of microprocessors, they're so controlled that you can't even have foreign nationals observe the production. That's how controlled they are. So it was an interesting way that my two worlds collided on this. My love of podcasts and Elon Musk there, getting sort of drawn in as well with ITAR. To be very honest, Doug, I didn't need work getting into my head today, and it happened very early. So I'm a little shocked though that most Americans don't realize, even people that export, just how controlled some of this technology is. The idea of deemed exports. If an individual who is not American learns about a controlled technology, you may have to get an export license or exception for them to leave the country, because they're not going to go home and forget what they just learned, which means that type of information, that type of technology is basically leaving the country. And as such, it could end up being a real problem if it comes back to bite us in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about dual use technology. Skylink, right? I mean, oh my goodness. Talk about a weapon system that is ripe for hacking, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just insane. So that's kind of cool. He was talking about that.
Yeah, it's weird. You were talking about Skylink. I have friends that have bought it, and they sing its praises. Most of them live in really rural areas, places where getting high-speed internet isn't very easy to do, and they all love it. I've thought about it. The price of it isn't really that bad. And the idea of being able to take it if you wanted to, when I do all of my backwoods camping, Doug, all that time I spend away from civilization, seems like a good idea. But you're absolutely right. The Ukrainian army wouldn't be able to function if it weren't for their ability to have access to Skynet. Oh, sorry. Skylink.
I love it. Good
Mm-hmm.
deal. All right. Well, that brings us to halftime. Brought to us by Cap Logistics. Keenan's pushing the buttons and pulling the levers. Doesn't matter where we are. Cooped up in a phone booth in a snowy town, or what I'm going to guess you're probably on, I was going to say 37th floor, but it could be
That's
taller than
absolutely
that.
correct.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That's absolutely correct. Yep.
I swear to goodness that you did not tell me that. It was just kind of a guess looking at the angle of the city. So
We'll have Keenan roll the tape. We'll have Keenan roll the tape. I don't know if I did either.
Yeah, that's great. So, but that is that leads us to halftime. So I don't know. Why don't you go first, my friend?
Okay. Scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I kept seeing this video of a guy cutting up a pineapple. But what do I care? It's a guy cutting a pineapple. And then I read the caption on one of them, and it says, "Man breaks Guinness World's Record for preparing a pineapple." Like this was a record, right? Of cutting the skin into the squares and coring it and then cutting every. Like it was a record. And here's the thing, Doug. It doesn't seem like he's going that fast. Like it seems like, you or I, someone just gave us a chef knife and we're like, yeah, okay. Like we watched the YouTube video and we just cut it and did it. I think I could beat that record. I think I could beat that record if you gave me like a week to practice and a couple of pineapples. Have a lot of pina coladas if I was doing that. But I started looking this morning into all these records. I think it was a couple of years ago. We talked about a guy who took a pumpkin the farthest. Like he hollowed out a pumpkin and went down a river. I think you talked about that one. There's some really weird longest fingernails. Like someone's got fingernails that are like meters long. There's a lot of dumb Guinness Book of World Records that I think someone's just like, I'm going to see if I can break the record. Actually, I'm setting the record. And then other idiots like me decide to follow them, i.e. who can prepare a pineapple the fastest. So I don't know, Doug, is there some record that you know about you think you could beat?
Not that I know about, but I'll make one comment, then I'll give you my 2 cents here. I remember back in the day when the Guinness Book of World Records was literally a book. Right? Yeah. And it was kind of small, but it was those two, I was going to say fat, but I probably can't say that anymore. Two large brothers that were on the motorcycles.
Yep.
And then the guy with the fingernails, right? I remember seeing that. And then I think his name was Waldo, last name of Waldo, the tallest man in the world. Right?
Oh, yeah. I remember that dude.
8'10" or something. Those were like the classic pictures. And it doesn't matter if it was like the 1984 version or the 85 or the 86. It's the same pictures, right? Those two fat guys on the motorcycles. I was like, that's insane. So anyway, when you were talking about that, that's what I was thinking of when I was a kid, just thumbing through the actual book. But initially when you said that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to break the record of holding my breath the longest. And then I'm like, that's too much work. You got to prepare for that, right? That's too. And then I said, no, you need something simple like the furthest distance of slingshotting a rock underwater, right? Or something like that, where you just do it, right? You just grab something off the Walmart shelf and start chucking rocks underwater. So I think it would be something really obscure like that.
That nobody would want to try to beat anyway, right?
Yeah, like they're like, really? That's a thing? I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm the world record holder of rock slingshots underwater.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I did notice the oldest cat ever was 36 years old.
All right.
So I'm wondering if I could like hire a vet to live with me. Just get like 9 or 10 cats and just treat them with the highest possible care and see if I can get one to live longer than that. That might be something interesting. Yeah. But there was one for pitting cherries, the number of cherries pitted in a minute. Just silly things like that, man. Yeah. But I think number of Diet Cokes drank in a 12-month period, I could probably take that one down.
Are you going for that right now as this show is going?
Marriott has an agreement with Pepsi, so unfortunately it's Diet Pepsis and not Diet Cokes, but I'm working on it. Buddy. Yeah. I prefer Diet Coke. I'll just be honest. I drink them both with incredible exuberance, but if given a choice, I will generally get out of a freestyle machine Diet Cokes. Yeah. Nice. All right, Doug, what you got?
So mine's related to vending machines, right? I saw this article that vending machines are making a comeback, obviously with a labor shortage and the cost of employees now. And it is way different than when you and I were growing up, right? I remember being in an ops office at Airborne Express back in the mid 90s, and the break room, like, you don't know, are these candy bars like 4 years old? And it was the things you had to pull, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't a code. You put your money in and you just pull the thing and it drops down. And half of them were empty. One of them was like a packaged sandwich, and you're like, no way in hell am I going to eat that. And then the rest of it were like Cheetos and Funyuns, right? And then some candy bars. Well, the vending machines now, fresh food, sandwiches, sushi, even gadgets and things of that nature. But the idea of a vending machine now in 2024 is way different than the experience that I had at the break room in the Airborne Express office in 1997. So, yeah, what's your take? Would you pull a knob, and you don't pull a knob anymore, right? It just drops out after you type in your code. And I don't even think you can put in cash anymore. You have to use your credit card. But is there anything that you would not eat out of a vending machine?
Probably not. No. I've I've been eating street food in India and Asia since I was a kid, so I've got a pretty cast iron stomach. Uh,
Wow.
you mentioned this stuff. There's two things that spring to mind. The first is recently in New Orleans, all over the place, I saw cigarette machines. And I can't remember the last time I saw those, but you have to
Yeah.
go to the bar, show them you're 18, and then you pay for them there, and they give you a coin. Like, why don't you sell them at the bar, right? And the second thing, for if you've ever been to Amsterdam, Doug, have you been to Amsterdam?
I have not.
Okay, there's a thing there called a FIBO, and I think it's spelled FEBO, and they're all over the place, and they're automats. So they're these little glass windows, and you put in your change, and you take out like a little cheeseburger or those bitter balls or French fries or chicken or whatever, and there's someone behind there just cooking them, sticking them in the slots. I love going there with like all the junkies and guys high that have shown up from England to get stoned for 3 days, and all the rest of the tourists, and getting some. The food is actually pretty good. It's
Yeah.
dirt cheap, and it's all on coins. It seems like a great way to launder money for the Russian mob, if you ask me.
Yeah. 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 I saw a fair share in the Italian district of Boston too, as far as
Oh, yeah.
laundry.
Best place for pizza, Umberto's in the north end of Boston. They sell pizza till they're out. So they sell pizza and rice balls arancini, and they sell it at lunch, lunch only. I think they open at like 10:45, and they close when they're out of food. So if you're ever in Boston, go to the North End, check out Umberto's. It's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been there. And then there's Mike's cannolis, and there's some other cannoli
Mike's
place
and
across the
Modern.
street.
Yes, Mike's and Modern. And that will start a fist fight amongst Italian Americans in Boston. If your if your grandfather drove like a Lincoln or a Caddy, if you come from like that real serious North Shore Italian family, you're definitely going to Mike's because that's more home style, right? But if you want pretty stuff, you go to Modern. Their stuff is much nicer looking. That's if your grandfather drove like a Mercedes, or a Fiat, or a
Okay.
Scarf, smoked cigarettes with a cigarette holder, said "ciao" abbiamo all the time, right? So very,
Good.
very different, very different. But they're both incredible. They're both
Yeah.
incredible. I am very much a Mike's guy. I'm very much
Good.
a Mike's guy. Yeah.
Well, the awesome part about this, Pete, is we just went from Guinness Book of World Records to vending machines to laundering money to cannolis.
Yep, that's a halftime, baby. If you're gonna have a halftime, Doug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All
All
right. I'm
right.
going
So
to
what's your next topic, buddy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This one, we talk about international trade and and the ocean freight and air freight. The one thing that people forget about often is that the Mississippi River and how it is an artery for moving products for export, primarily for agriculture, right? And I read that this is the third year in a row where they've had low water levels, right? And just like the situation in the Panama Canal that we've spoken about, when the water goes down, you can't have a vessel that is too heavy, so you have less product on it. You can only have so many vessels moving through because the channels are they're not smaller, but the water level's low, so you can't have as many vessels going back and forth. And it is really a big deal for the American farmer, right? The export competitiveness related to the cost. I don't know if it's per bushel for certain things. I don't know the unit of measure, but the bottom line is there's not enough water. You can't move as much stuff down the Mississippi River, so it's going to cost more money. And they were even talking about pulling things off the water and putting it on trains or even trucks to get it down the Mississippi River for export. And so there's a big concern. I know pre-election, part of this article spoke about everybody was buying because they didn't know what was going to transpire with the election. But after that happens and the election is over, what happens to those exports? Are people just going to look for other countries like Brazil? Was one that was brought up as far as, hey, we can't afford it. And then what that does for the American farmer. So I think people should take note. I think it's a bigger deal, and it's often overlooked as a significant, revenue stream for America. So I don't know.
Well, here at Global Trade this week, we are pro farm, pro pharma, pro agriculture. We are definitely team agriculture here on the show. The one that this brings to mind, Doug, are the seeds, right? So the big seed companies send their seeds down to South America, then they send the seeds back up to North America, and a lot of that seed moves down the river. And when you don't have the ability to move it, it becomes very expensive to move that via truck. On ships we have all the safe water marks. They're called plimsoll marks. So on the side of a ship, it's a big circle. It has a line through the middle, and that's as high as the water can go before the load probably isn't safe. And you want your ship to be on that level because that means it's full of cargo. When you start looking at barge traffic on rivers that are depleted, you'll notice they're way below, like the water line's way below the plimsoll mark, trying to keep it safe, which means those carriers are also losing money. So one way or the other, this has a negative effect on a number of different types of industries. The transportation providers themselves, the people who work in the ports in and of themselves. It's a danger to everything, and it's an environmental impact. So yeah, it's a pretty scary thing, Doug, on the whole of it. One quick aside, in my freshman cargo class at Maine Maritime Academy, I was one of the questions on a test was who invented and manages the plimsoll mark, and my answer was Mr. Plimsoll, and I did not get that right. And as a matter of fact, Commander Weeks wrote down next to it, "See me after class." So not my best moment. I did not know. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, was it multiple choice? Did you actually have to write an answer?
No, it was a write-in. Yeah, Commander Weeks definitely took his time to read all the answers. Yeah.
Nice, good. All right, well, bring us home on our final topic for this week's show.
Yeah, final topic has to do with possible pending chaos, right? So we were talking about chaos at the beginning of the show. I'm going to bring it down to you again at the end. I believe in the past we've talked about the South China Sea and the disagreements that countries have over who controls that area. China maintains that it's all theirs. It's all theirs. Like that is their navigable waterway. That is their waterway. And if they want to shut it down, that's their right. However, there's a lot of other countries that don't agree. Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, Brunei, the list goes on and on. They don't agree with this, and it's caused actual physical altercation. So the Chinese Coast Guard has been ramming ships, literally ramming ships, trying to damage other vessels, cause financial hardship on people. It's getting worse and worse, Doug. And if China were to decide to really lock that down, it would end up with the United States, probably Great Britain, and a couple other naval countries having to do something about it. So we all worry about Taiwan and the invasion of Taiwan being a kickstarting point. You would shut down commerce and you would cripple the petroleum trade if you were to do that. And that would 100% absolutely bring America into a war. And it hasn't been as spicy as it is right now. And I'm not seeing enough of this reported in the news. So I think trade professionals should be watching it. We should be watching the escalations and making people aware of the fact that this is a possible outcome. And it's important to have a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, and a plan F. Because if we can't get stuff from there, we got to get it from somewhere. So hope is not a strategy. Keep in mind that the South China Sea is heavily contested.
Yeah, I had not thought about that. Like you said, the chaos, and steamship lines are like, hey, we're not going to deal with navigating the potential problems down in that region. So blank sailings, we're going to pull the frequency in which we navigate that sea. Could have some serious implications, like you had said. I was not aware of that until you just brought it up. But yeah, we're so focused on Panama and the Suez Canal. What's brewing up down there, and that could be a trifecta with creating log jams. And like we said at the beginning of the show, a chaos and uncertainty could drive prices up, and steamship lines are the beneficiaries for sure. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It never ends, Doug. It never ends.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that does end, Pete, and it's a pretty good segue right there.
Doug. That was a softball for a transition. I'm glad you got it.
I love it. One thing that does end every week is this show and Global Trade This Week. We can't thank you enough for listening, engaging. If you have comments, positive or negative, about our topics, please let us know. And again, Keenan and Cap Logistics, thanks for your efforts to put this thing together. And as we've said multiple times, if it's happening in global trade, you'll hear it here first, and we will have a forward-leaning perspective. It's easy to talk about what happened. It takes guts, Pete, to talk about what's going to happen, and that's what we try to focus on.
Hell yeah, buddy.
I love it. All right, well, enjoy Chicago.
Everybody vote. Go vote. Everybody vote. I don't care for who. Go vote. Go vote.
Yeah, good one. Enjoy Chicago, and we'll catch you next week, my friend.
All right, buddy. See you.
All right, take care.